Right, thank you everyone. It has gone 6 o'clock, so we will make a start on the Cabinet. So good evening everyone and welcome to tonight's Cabinet meeting. The first item of business is the meeting protocol. There are a few who haven't been here for a while, so I will read it out in full just as a refresher. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Yorkshire Bank on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door by which you entered the room or by the fire exits which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please also make sure all your mobile phones are turned off or set to silent, and this meeting is being live streamed and will be available for future broadcast as well. That leads us on to apologies. I am only aware of one, which is Councillor Richard Smith. He is away, and I've given him permission as it's his birthday today, so I think he's entitled to have that at least. So I'm sure on behalf of the whole Cabinet we wish him many happy returns of the day. Declarations of interest. Are there any which are not printed on the agenda paper? Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Leader. I am joint shareholder in a factory unit on the Baton Road Industrial Estate from Friday, and I am a member of NABSO. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Guttridge. That leads us on to agenda item 4, which is... Oh, sorry, Kyle. Councillor Evans.
No worries. It's been printed on some declarations of interest that I'm the representative on the Nuneaton and Bedworth Older People's Forum, and that's not correct. I think that's Councillor Guttridge who's on that body, not me.
Can we make sure, Rebecca, that that's looked at for the future? Thank you. Turning to the minutes, they have been circulated. Is everyone happy that they are a true and accurate record of the last meeting? Okay, thank you. I'll sign those off. Thank you, Phil. That leads us on to agenda item number 5, which is public consultation. I'm aware that Mrs. Condacor would like to speak on agenda items 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. There is a late paper which is on the leisure update. Is that something we should speak on as well? Okay, thank you. And any other non-cabinet members I will bring in at the suitable point as well, as outlined with the changes at annual council. So without further ado, that leads us on to agenda item number 6, which is the adoption of supplementary planning documents on the health impact assessment SPD and the open space and green infrastructure SPD. In the absence of Councillor Smith, I will move the report. So the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval to recommend the Health Impact Assessment SPD and the Open Space and Green Infrastructure SPD for adoption at full council. Both sets of documents were subject to public consultation in January 2021. The Health Impact Assessment SPD sets out the Council's expectations for health impact assessment, including screening reports and full health impact assessments. HIAs are required for major planning applications under policy HS5 of the Borough Plan. The intention is for the SPD to ensure a minimum standard for assessments and to aid review by the Council and other consultees. The responses to the consultation are set out in Appendix 8.2 and were considered and shaped the final version provided in Appendix A1. The key changes to the SPD are set out in the report. The Open Space and Green Infrastructure SPD sets out the Council's expectation in terms of key principles and processes for developers to adhere to when master planning and delivering new development sites. This includes biodiversity, parks and play provision, allotments, sustainable drainage systems, accessible green network corridors. Again, the responses to the consultation are provided in Appendix B2 and were considered and have shaped the final version provided in Appendix B1. Adoption of the guidance will help to deliver high quality and sustainable development in the borough, so I am happy from the Chair to move the recommendations as printed in the report. Does that receive a seconder from Cabinet?
I'll second that, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gutteridge. I will move on to public speakers on this item, which is Mrs. Condagore. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just really wanted to say, once again, it's really disappointing how few people actually respond to these things, because once again, I was the only member of the public that did. I know a lot of people think that it's a waste of time actually responding to these consultations and things, but actually, you know, these two, it's actually shown on the documentation what comments were made and what changes are going to be made as a result. So changes do happen when people do comment and things, and I can only encourage people to actually look through. It's not terribly glamorous stuff ploughing through all these documents and things, but it is important, and you know, your comments will be taken on board and things. Not everything will lead to a change, but you know, it is worth responding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Condagore. No other public speakers, so I'll move on to non-Cabinet members. Nothing from Councillor Watkins. Councillor Condagore.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd echo what my wife said. It is important to take part in these things, particularly the health one. It's been so important. I mean, Michelle's had a background in health, and so many of the planning applications that come before us have an impact, and particularly when they're fast food outlets, etc. It is really important they're in the right place. And so I really do want us to be a healthier town. So it is important, this health impact assessment. There's also a big problem in the borough of air quality. Unfortunately, the government's rules on air quality at the moment are quite lax, and we have quite high limits, higher in some cases than the World Health Authority limits. And I know the Times and Sunday Times have been running a campaign to bring down the limits on particulate emissions, PM 2.5s. So I do think it's going to be a long-standing issue, these health impact issues in terms of planning. It is most disappointing at tomorrow's scrutiny committee. We've got a very substandard air quality report that only mentions the air quality zones areas, when quite a lot of our borough is only just below the current legal limit, particularly the Coventry Road in Bedworth, various locations on the Heath End Road and things. So I do think this is an area that's going to get more important, and we need more planning guidance, planning rules. And finally, it's most unfortunate we don't have stronger planning rules on renewable energies, which also ties in with health impact, because we need to be getting rid of gas boilers and going over to more renewable supplies of heating and lighting, etc. in our homes. And our borough plan doesn't insist on any new development having any solar panels, etc., which could, at least in summer, produce hot water and electricity. So there's a lot more to do. Very pleased that we've made these steps, but it's a glass half full rather than a glass that's fully filled yet. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condagore. Any member of the Cabinet? Councillor Gutteridge.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank Mrs. Condagore for taking the time to fill in the form and put her points down on the SPD. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gutteridge. I think it's really important that we do bring these items forward, as we are having a number of large-scale developments across the borough, including in my own patch, that there will be impacts which arise out of these developments, and it's important that we do work to mitigate these. And also, equally as important, are the green space and green infrastructure that goes with it. I know that a number of residents, having been through this personally, myself and Councillor Gutteridge, we know that if residents are faced with large-scale developments, they also want to know what mitigations will be put in place as a result of these developments. And knowing, based on the SPD where it is earmarked by size of development, what will be required for the scale of the development is important to manage not only developers' expectations and what they are required to do, but also to manage residents' expectations as to what will be coming forward. Ensuring things like green gyms, multi-use games areas, trees and planting, etc. They all help to make offset the harms which can be caused by development in many of our wards. So I think it is a great step forward. I think it's a shame that we haven't didn't have this as up to date as we did before some planning applications were considered, but we need to move forward. Does any officer want to come in on this? No? Okay, thank you. So it has been moved and seconded. All those members of the Cabinet in favour, please show. Okay, thank you very much. That is unanimous. So that moves us on to agenda item number 7, which is the Public Space Protection Order consultation on control of begging. Again, in Councillor Smith's absence, I will move the report from the Chair. I'm particularly pleased to see this come forward. Myself and Councillor Golby, upon taking office, were insistent that this needed to come forward. A number of town centre businesses and traders have been wanting this for a while to provide some reassurance and some actual mechanism for getting for dealing with some of these complicated issues within the town centre. Indeed, recently, and it was much publicised, we had one conviction recently in the Magistrates' Court of a well-known offender within the borough, and it's important to note that this council has done everything it possibly can to help those who are on the streets and presenting as homeless. And in a number of cases, they are actually not homeless. They do actually have residences to live in. We even have heard of one story where one has travelled in by train from another area. So this isn't a heartless council. In fact, I know Dawn's department does an awful lot of work on this, and particularly at the start of the pandemic, where we got everyone in. So those who are actually still out there are those who are not accepting help, and we have to draw the line somewhere. Indeed, the other week I had a message from a town centre business to tell me that just around the corner from his business, one of the homeless people on the streets had actually defecated around the corner from another business. And that is not acceptable, and it actually detracts from the town centres which are actually trying to big up, to reform, to regenerate, and to make places that people actually want to be. So I think this is a great step forward and will actually give the police and officers more ammunition in dealing with nuisance offenders. Does that receive a seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
Do you wish to speak as well?
I'll speak after the other
okay.
speakers. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Well, I agree with you. I think, unfortunately, it is necessary. I just hope that it doesn't just push them into, other areas of the borough. But, I mean, that's something that will just have to be dealt with if it happens. But, these people have been offered help, and that, I don't know what more can be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Condacor. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacor, and then Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, I think that everyone's agreeing that the sort of almost professional beggars do need to be dealt with. And we also see a lot of genuine homeless people who are actually displaced from the town centres because of the pitches almost grabbed by these people. And I know in the past Dawn's team have helped people who've been camping out in Wennington in the woods on Coronation Walk and by the rugby club. So there are homeless around that are effectively displaced by these people who are more aggressive, more begging, rather than actually just generally being homeless. So we do have a problem in the borough, and we do need to get the support as much, the P3 and the doorway, etc., as we can. But yeah, we also need to sort of differentiate between these people who are taking a pitch and driving people out of our town who might want to come and shop and have a nice cup of tea and things. And I do know there is this pushing people around issue, because I mean Coventry had their protection orders before we did, and then we saw changes as a result of that. So yeah, if I had a vote, I'd support this, but and also make sure we do, and I know we do, support those who are genuinely homeless. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacore. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, no surprise that I'm fully supportive of this. The beggars that we do see in our town centre have been gave every chance that they can to be in accommodation. I would have liked it to have gone a little bit further, to be honest, but I understand that we probably can't do it on this order, so I would ask Councillor Golby if she could ask the housing team if we could add something into the tenancy agreement, that if any of our tenants are caught begging out on the streets, then that their tenancy could be at risk. Because I have been out on estate walks, I've seen tenants waiting for repairs, got back to the town centre and I've seen that tenant sitting in the town centre, so our officers are knocking on the door and he's in town centre begging. Begging caused a lot of problem for me when I was doing my mayoral thing, because people are genuinely confused about beggars and people in temporary accommodation. Massive difference. These are people, as you have said, Chair, they've got accommodation, they've been offered out. Not only have we got our housing team, we've got Doorway and P3, so we've got a considerable amount of help within Nuneaton and Bedworth. So there really is no excuse. I've seen all the comments on Facebook where the police should be doing better and everybody should be helping them. That's not true. We've helped them as much as they can. And this is a choice. This is a lifestyle choice. I've also been in conversations in the past, obviously, with the police, and they're looking forward to seeing this. But it does bring to question of why the police haven't done things of, as you say, using the town centres as toilets, shooting up. I've had calls where needles have been left on windowsills in the town centre. Our town centres are monitored by CCTV. All of this can be proven, so the police should do more as well. It's not all down to the council to do these things. Which also brings me on to the private property owners, as in Debenhams. We had 6 of them camping out in there. I hope that this proves that the council are serious, proves that the police can do their job, and now forces private property owners to do something about their doorways. And if it needs be, cage them up. Everything is not owned by the council, and private property owners need to do something too. So I'm in full support of this. I just wish it could have gone a little bit further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Golby.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with what's been said, but just to point out a couple of things. It's not just the police, it's the CPS. And the CPS let us down, and the police do work, and then it gets booted by the CPS. So there is a whole system that needs to be reviewed, which is slightly beyond our control. The issue with Debenhams has actually come to the fore, and there will possibly be some changes to that doorway being made fairly imminently. And as far as the tenancy agreement goes, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that one of the first things I did when I got in was I want to have a zero tolerance approach to nuisance tenants, and that will be coming into play with the begging and nuisance behaviour. People who are our tenants should be held to a standard of behaviour that is fair to everybody, and also a reasonable standard of behaviour that the taxpayer finds acceptable as well, considering it's the taxpayer that's kind of helping them along the way. I've seen things online that I really do need to rebut on this, I absolutely do. And some of it has been politically motivated as well, which is quite disappointing. This is not to stop homelessness. This is not anything to do with homelessness in our town centre. This is not the heartless Tories picking on or vilifying the homeless. I absolutely want to get that out there now. This is not that at all. I just refuse to wear accusations like that because it's pathetic. So I know that there is an absolute world of difference between people who are beggars and people who are genuinely rough sleepers or street homeless. And rough sleeping, to be blunt, is a very, very small proportion of the homeless factions that we have in this in the borough. We deal with a lot of homelessness that is not even seen by residents. We've got sofa surfers, we've got people in temporary accommodation. They are homeless. They might not have a roof over their head, but they are homeless. They're not sleeping in a shop doorway, but they are homeless. So there is a big distinction between that and people who are begging in the town centre. We and the partner agencies do take a stance to prevent homelessness before it happens, rather than wait till homelessness happens and then do something about it. We do like to work with landlords and tenants who are possibly at risk of either rescinding a tenancy or losing a tenancy, depending on which side of the coin you're looking at. And we will work with people to try and maintain that tenancy, because then we do not have a situation where we are having to put people up in homeless accommodation because they are not coming to us as homeless. That is the best way forward, is to keep people within the homes that they already have. And it is a good success story that happens. And I know I'm talking about homelessness, but this PSPO is being misconstrued quite a lot as an assault on homeless people. And again, I'm trying to get it through that it's not. And there's a vast amount of work that goes on in this council to prevent homelessness. I know that it's hard for people to rationalise that there are some people within the borough that do not want help. They do not want a roof over their heads. They do not want anybody interfering with their lives. And we've seen that in the town centre time and time again. In Debenham's doorway recently, that cohort of people in that doorway are possibly, anecdotally, probably had more help offered to them from this council than any other resident in this borough over a long period of time. And there is simply some people who you just cannot help until they ask for it. And that is where we are with that. So for a few facts about rough sleeping, Councillor Kandaka referred to people who are rough sleepers and that are all over the borough. Well, we have an annual rough sleeper count. So in 2018, the annual rough sleeper count was 22 rough sleepers in the borough. This reduced to 8 in 2019, 4 in 2020, and on average there's been 2 individuals who are rough sleepers in this borough for the last 12 months. So that also plays into the fact that this council is doing work to keep rough sleepers in housing. And the 2 that individuals were homeless are not necessarily homeless through the whole period of the 12 months. They are part of the cohort of aggressive beggars in the town centre, unfortunately, and they did present as homeless when they weren't. So again, that's something that we need to get through. Difference between homelessness and begging is vast. I know that some people think that it's all the same thing. It absolutely isn't. And the people coming in from outside of the borough, we did have a guy who used to come in on the Leicester train 5 days a week and sit in the town centre, then pack his bag up and go back on the Leicester train. And he used to pull in maybe 200 quid on a good day, because people in this borough are extremely generous. They might not be the wealthiest people in the world, but they are very, very generous. So unfortunately, people do take advantage of that. And this PSPO is something that we can do to help residents not have the advantage taken from them. And I would say on that note as well, if anybody wants to donate to any sort of homelessness cause, donate your time or your money to a respectable, reputable organisation. They will take your money and they will use it wisely and appropriately for the people who genuinely need it. Do not put money in a cup. Go buy a sandwich from Greggs. I've done it before. I bought a sandwich from Greggs. I've given it to someone and they put it in the bin. That could have been my £3 going on a bottle of whiskey or you know, in someone's arm. I don't want that. I want to actually genuinely help people. So again, reiterate the fact, please give your time or your money to reputable organisations. So I hope I'm being really clear on this. And it doesn't, you know, there are some people who it doesn't matter what I say. I can say it till I'm blue in the face. They will always misrepresent what's going on. However, I am happy to propose this PSPO, and I think it does do what we want it to do in the first instance, and it is only a starting point. If we need to move further with it, we can. So I'm happy to second this motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. Any other member of Cabinet? Anything officers wish to come back on? No? Thank you very much. Just to pick up on one point which was made, I can update members about Debenhams because I've had an email through today. Given what had happened the previous week with the defecation, I had asked Jonathan White to see what could be done with Debenhams and whether he could make some lines through to them about whether they could try and board off the front, and I can confirm that has been done today. I have actually seen the pictures which were sent through to me by Jonathan. I will admit it doesn't look the nicest in the town centre, but it is a price we have to pay to prevent these antisocial behaviours. But having said that, we are looking at, with the Welcome Back Fund, which we bid for at the last full Cabinet, if we are successful in that, hoardings is a part of that, and we should be able to put something around there which looks a bit more aesthetically pleasing. So there has been work going on behind the scenes, and I'm pleased to report that that has actually happened. So if anyone wants to go and have a look at Debenhams afterwards, please feel free, and I'm sure our friends in the press will pop down and have a look too. So having wrapped that up, is everyone happy? Can we move to the vote? All those in favour of the PSPO? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. So that will go out to consultation. Okay. Thank you, Dawn. That then moves us on to agenda item number 8, which again I'll take as well. This is about a PSPO for sales of cars by the public highway. I should also point out that in the original printed paper there is an error under recommendations where it refers to dog control orders, but that has been amended on the addendum paper which has been circulated before. In moving the recommendation for this to go out, I am absolutely delighted that this is going out. As a ward member, I have had numerous complaints over many years, and I'm sure there are other councillors who will attest to that tonight, that people are flouting the rules and putting cars for sale by the side of the road. I'm sure that Mr. Richardson, who sat beside me, can attest to the number of photos that he has had through the years highlighting these issues, many from my colleague, Councillor Gutteridge. And these are people who are blighting the landscape and trying to circumvent the rules. And they don't usually have the same protections as going to a normal car sales shop or outlet. They report that they are doing these for a hobby, when in fact it is to make money. Some of them have even been found to not even be taxed or insured, so they are a liability as well to residents of this borough. And it is high time that we did something about it. And again, I am happy that we have brought this forward within the first 6 weeks of a new administration. It's something that we looked at before. We've always found it difficult to get this moving, but we have done so, and it will be in effect. It will be against the Public Space Protection Order to do so without consent at the side of any A or B road. We did have to make a balanced decision about how far we could extend this potential order, and in doing allow people who wish to like sell their car ordinarily by the side of the road not to impact on people who are doing it because they want to sell their car and buy a new one, but those who are actually doing it for business, and so that we can focus on the main arterial routes into and around the borough where they are more likely to be trying to sell because they're trying to advertise their goods. So to reduce any opportunity for challenge, the advice that we have had and we consulted on just before the election as a working party with Mr Richardson was that we believe A and B roads is a suitable target to look at for trying to prevent these PSBOs, because they aren't going to do it if it's a quiet cul-de-sac. They're more likely to do it on the Lutterworth roads, the Eastborough ways, the Gypsy lanes, the Hinkley roads, the Camphill roads, and I'm sure Councillor Evans will have some in Bedworth which I haven't seen where these are. Robin Lane, thank you Councillor Evans. So they are all over the place. So I'm happy to move this to go out to consultation, and the sooner we get this in the better. Does it receive a seconder?
I'll second that, Leader, and I'll speak at the end, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gutteridge. Mrs Condacore.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very glad to see it too. It's not only just looking, pretty rubbish if all these cars just sort of strewn alongside places, but particularly like Eastborough Way, it is actually dangerous because they're right on the side there, and you shouldn't have to be expecting people to be driving off from those places, people looking at cars there and things, particularly as a cyclist and things. There are enough dangers on the road as it is without extra things. And I've seen on Facebook people say, oh, people are only trying to earn a living and things. Well, there's ways and means of doing that. And, what you've said previously, I absolutely agree with. Let's hope it comes in soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Condacore. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Clark, then Councillor Condacore.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I welcome this introduction and the consultation that's going to come about from it. Over many years, I have been contacted by residents, sometimes on a daily basis, where they've had problems with people going and knocking on the doors, where there's cars parked outside the houses. They go and knock on the doors to see if it's them that's selling the car. Quite often it is not. It's really, really frustrated many residents. Not only that, as has been said, and I'll try not to repeat what you've already gone through, Leader, insofar as you've covered a vast range of issues around the sale of these cars. They cause accidents. I've actually known of an accident on the Eastborough Way by one of these cars. They park indiscriminately. They've parked on the Griff Island, on the triangles, so they cause blockage of sight lines, so the traffic people can't see to get out of the junctions. It really is a nuisance in this town. We've got businesses, and I'm not anti-business, obviously. We've got businesses who pay their business rates, trade quite legitimately, and pay their dues. And it's right that they have some sort of protection and get the benefits of paying their dues for that. Sorry, I'm just seeing the lights flashing up there. I'm not sure whether that's actual or not. I do fully support this. I welcome it, to be honest with you. It took many years to get to this point. Something we must do, I feel, and I think the consultation, whilst it doesn't include everything again, as with the previous order, it does give a certain amount of protection and will help residents who have been affected for, well, ever since I've been a councillor, both previously and this time, who have just endured this nuisance on the public highway. It really is a distraction. You've got people slowing down has been identified, trying to look at phone numbers or something, or trying to look at the cars and things. It just causes problems. And I welcome this, and I hope the Cabinet will support the recommendation and it will go through. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Just to pick up on something that I remember you telling me once, wasn't there an instance where there was actually criminal damage to the trees where they were trying to... You'd done something to try and block it, and one of the traders actually trying to stomp on the tree?
Yeah, just for clarification, yes, that did take place. The County Council actually installed some bushes, trees along the side of the highway, lay-by, and the trees, bushes were broken down to enable the cars to be seen on the lay-by. And again, unfortunately, no action was taken at that time, but it obviously was done so that they could display cars without having to pay the dues and demands that everybody else has to pay. It's not fair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Condicle.
Thank you. I sat on this working party and it was a very fruitful one, and we actually understood some of the difficulties in banning things everywhere, which is why we got the A and the B roads. Unfortunately, these people keep changing what they do. When I cycled down Eastborough Way, must have been the end of last week, there were already a car on there saying, "We buy cars." Because obviously if you start stopping them selling cars, they'll park cars on the side saying, "We buy any car," or something, ring this number. So it is something we're going to have to continuously update and keep on top of. And I think actually Andrew Sargent should be given some credit because it was his first working party chaired. I say this is very much a cross-party thing because it's been a borough-wide problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condicle. Any Cabinet member? Councillor Gutteridge.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think Philip Richardson, the solicitor, will have a bit more free time because I have constantly sent him photos, and Philip has acted on them as best he can. But I fully echo what the speakers have said early on. In my ward, personally, in Whitestone, which butts up to Attleborough and St Nick's and Weddington, we are blighted by these cars, i.e. on the Bolkington Road by the canal. They even drive onto the verges, dig the verges up, cut the verges up, and then drive off. It's also prevalent in Bolkington on the old New Inn site. They're parking there. Going back to what Councillor Clark said, yes, they even took the shears and cut the hedge, so they lowered the hedge so they could get the car sign in. I've also had instances on Eastborough Way where the farmer couldn't get his tractor into his field because the cars were blocking it, and he physically had to ring them up and ask them to move it, and then he got a load of verbal abuse. So I fully welcome this PSPO, and let's get on with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gutteridge. Any other member? No. Well, most of the things have been said. I do take on board the point which Councillor Condicle makes about people perhaps switching tactic to selling, or rather buying cars rather than selling. And indeed, that is a point which was made to me by Councillor Clark the other day when we were discussing this. And if that becomes a nuisance issue, I can give an assurance that this administration, once we have the evidence, will go out for a PSPO. One of the great shames that we have had over a number of years is that the legal instruments which can actually protect and do something for our residents against these antisocial behaviour and nuisances, the public space protections orders have not been used. The only two that we had were the dog control orders and the alcohol orders, and both of those lapsed, and we've had to go through those regimes again. But those are only two, and there are a number of antisocial behaviour nuisances across this borough where PSPOs may give more tools in the armoury to be able to deal with some of the problems that we have across Nuneaton and Bedworth, and indeed Bolkington, as Councillor Gutteridge mentioned with the New Inn. So I can assure councillors and anyone who is watching, if this turns out to be a problem moving forward that we switch from selling to buying, or even advertising other things, I know that there are sometimes issues with certain skip companies doing so. If we can demonstrate a pattern of nuisance behaviour, then this administration will not hesitate in moving further PSPOs to actually protect and enhance our borough and the quality of life of residents. So I'm happy that this will go out to consultation. So I'll bring it to a vote. Can I have a show of hands from Cabinet of all those in favour? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Just to let you know, I've had notice that the cameras aren't changing on the live feed, so it's just displaying you.
Oh, heaven forfend, they should look at me. Poor souls. Is that something that we can look at so that people can see who's actually speaking?
He is working on it. He's trying to test cameras over.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That moves us on to agenda item number 9, which is the Civic Honours Working Group. Councillor Croft, you wish to propose this?
Thank you, Chair. It's a very short report. Thank you to Director Davis for putting it together. I know he's got enough on his plate at the moment. Basically, one of the great priorities of this administration is a revival of civic pride, and a very good ways of doing that is greater recognition of our community groups and our sort of local heroes and individuals who contribute to the community, and re-emphasising or reviving some of our great civic and local traditions. And so we'd like to do some work on more community awards on the freedom of the borough, and I'm particularly interested, I know you are too, Leader, on the revival of the honorary alderman position as a sort of traditionalist conservative. I'm looking forward to doing that. So and this is particularly relevant given we've got the Jubilee year next year, so we've got a lot of civic events and commemorations in the next 18 months. So to do that job of work, we're establishing this committee. It's got 3 members of the administration, the mayor as the civic face of the borough, and leader of the opposition, so it's not just a partisan committee. And once we set it up, we can actually start the work and set the terms of reference. So that's what the report's about, Leader, and I shall move it as printed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Croft. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Golby, thank you. I believe Mrs Condacor, you're down to speak.
Thank you. Now, I'm not against there being awards and what have you and things, but I don't think it's the right time to be doing this. Civic pride to me is actually people being proud of the town centres and village centres in our area. And, you know, I'm concerned because it said, you know, it will need to be appropriately serviced by officers. Servicing of the Civic Honours Subcommittee may lead to increased salary costs. We need to be saving every penny and spending that actually on our towns that will benefit the most number of people. There are plenty of ways that people can be recognised through systems that are already there, you know, the British Empire Medal and all those sort of things, which can be, you know, done through the Lord Lieutenant's office and others. And there's lots of voluntary awards and things that actually happen anyway. So I just feel it's not the right time to be doing that. That's my personal view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs Condacor. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Leader. I disagree, to be honest with you. I think there are so many unsung heroes across our borough that are not duly recognised by the honours, national honours. It's not something that everybody can be nominated for or even receive. I think this is one way of recognising the work that the volunteers do within our borough, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, across the borough who do a lot of unsung work, litter picking, helping elderly people, helping people cross the roads, going shopping. These people need to be recognised, and I think this is the right time and right way of bringing this forward and helping to do that. So I would support the recommendations as proposed. The working party is brought forward to look at this and bring something forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Chair. I do have concerns about officer time. We're losing lots of officers. The council is incredibly short-staffed at the moment in things like democratic services, legal services. So if we are doing this, I would ask it's fairly careful of officer time as possible. It is a good idea to honour all these people, but we have so many things like the Transforming Nuneaton, the Abbey Street project, etc., that I don't want officers saying, sorry, I can't progress this because we've got that. So if we've got the bandwidth to do it, it's great to do this type of stuff, but we need to actually reserve the bandwidth effectively for our vital transformation and supporting all sorts of community initiatives. So it is getting it right and making sure we don't spend all our time giving honours and not doing the day job. Very keen on us doing honours and looking at saying how wonderful we are and how wonderful members of the community are, but we do need to keep the focus on the day jobs. And I don't know if you've had an estimate of cost and man hours to do this, but I do think the first question is how much can we do and when can we do things? Because otherwise it's very easy to have a magic money tree as a new administration and spend a lot of time on things that are not things that are unworthy of doing, but things that actually detract from the day job. And obviously, after a year, we'll be able to see the spread of the honours, and I hope it's a success. I hope it is non-partisan and most of them go to people in the community. But I am always wary of us keep saying, this will take officers' time, this will take officers' time, this will take officers' time, when I know we've only got one Philip Richardson, we've only got a couple of people on democratic services. Yeah, meetings and things take officers' time, and we are desperately short of that at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Any member of the Cabinet? Councillor Gutteridge.
Thank you, Leader. I fully support this because we need to honour some of our hard-working, unsung heroes of the borough. We've got a lot of young people in the borough who have been through a lot of turmoil, and they do very good things, i.e. the Scouts, Brownies, Rainbows, Rangers, Girl Guides, those sort of people, and people who look after those, and the youth clubs. We have to embrace the younger people of the borough. My next big birthday I'll be nearly 70. So I fully support the young people, and we've got to get the young people on board and honour them and give them some appreciation, because they are our future, and I fully support this. Thank you.
Councillor Golby.
Thanks, Chair. Civic pride is not just about the town centre. Civic pride is about the whole borough. And if we can't actually honour people in a nice way, this is us saying thank you very much for the hard work that you do. If we can't do that after the last 12, 18 months that we've just had, when can we do it? Because there have been so many people that have stepped up and really worked hard and volunteered and given of their time and put in an effort just to make other people's lives that little bit better. And it's quite a nice thing to actually recognise that, for this organisation to recognise that in other people. Because don't forget, those other people who are volunteering in a kind of tacit way help us, because they in some instances alleviate the burdens that are put onto us as a council, or that are put onto the county as a council, for example, through adult social care. We have a lot of people that if they weren't there, we would find a struggle to actually fulfil their role. So, and it's not just about that, it's about people who, like you say, do go out and do litter picks just because they do. They take the dog for a walk, they pick up a bag of rubbish. And people like that, who aren't usually known in their local areas, are not usually known very much outside of their local areas. So this is a way of us actually recognising those people who are maybe not part of an organisation, who do things for the local community, you know, unsung heroes. But I think now is absolutely the right time to start looking at these things, because we've been through some really, really rubbish times in the last 12 months with COVID. And like I said before, there's been a lot of people that have stepped up and volunteered. So it is about civic pride. It's not about just the town centres, because civic pride extends way beyond those two borders, 3 if you count Bulkington as well. Yeah, happy to put this forward. And if it does become a drain on officers' time, which I can't see, there are other things that are also unnecessary and a drain on officers' times that maybe we are all responsible for and could do less of. So that's one thing that we can all bear in mind, isn't it?
Thank you. Any other member? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. As Councillor Golby just said, civic pride is more than just the state of your town centres and the state of your roads, although they are extremely important. It is also a sense, a feeling of community and rewarding those who have demonstrated a loyalty to their towns and their villages and their local areas over a number of years. And it is an area which was sadly neglected under the previous administration. Indeed, one of my greatest regrets of my career on this authority is that probably close to 8 or 9 years ago now, the freedom of the borough we put forward for the late, great Jesse Owen, who had given so much to our community and was blocked on a political whim. And he had done so much, I believe he was a former Royal Marine, wasn't he? Dedicated so much, always there at the remembrance events, at the forefront, and woe betide you if you got in his way. He was a fearsome person who was dedicated to remembering those who had made the ultimate sacrifice. And yet, this authority under the previous Labour administration couldn't bring it upon itself to reward and recognise his tenacity and his dedication to Nuneaton and Bedworth. Something which we pride ourselves on, especially in, and I'm sure Councillor Evans will correct me if I'm wrong, this is the 100th year of the Remembrance organisation, and indeed the 100th year that we've been honouring it within Bedworth, with the Bedworth Armistice Committee. There are a number of people who have dedicated their lives to the service of others, and there are a range of things that we can do as an organisation, whether it be Freedom of the Borough, whether it be Aldermen, whether it be the Mayor giving some kind of community award in recognition. There are people out there who make such a difference, from foster carers who help children when they are at their most vulnerable, to the youth movements, as Councillor Gutteridge said, to the people who keep our local areas tidy, just off their own volition. There is so much we can do, and yes, I am conscious of officer time, but if this authority does not recognise the sacrifices that people have made, and there are a number of people who have helped put Nuneaton and Bedworth on the map over the years that we have ignored, then we do ourselves a great disservice. And the motto of this borough is united to achieve, and I think that would be one of the greatest things we could do. I mean, it's a shame that we haven't been able to honour some of our others, like Larry Grayson in the past. And we also have major movie star directors of Godzilla and Star Wars from our borough who have put us on the map. And we don't celebrate and recognise that enough. So I fully endorse these recommendations. And once we have been able to be established, we can work out our terms of reference and actually get to work on doing something which makes a difference to those in our communities. So, everyone ready to take a vote on this matter? Can we have a show of hands in favour, please? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That moves us on to agenda item number 10, which is the General Fund Revenue and Capital Programme Update 21-22. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not going to speak at great length on this item tonight because we're bringing it back on Wednesday evening next to full council, so I'll make my full statement and set out our full case then. So if you're a glutton for punishment and like my speeches, you'll want to listen in then. This is the first real major pillar of our economic action plan for this borough. This emergency budget resolution is necessary to implement our manifesto promises at pace and to kickstart with the levers that are available to us the economic recovery in the borough. So it implements our themes. The first is economic recovery, and that is the big item in the emergency budget. It is the car parking offer. It is economic stimulus to support our town centres who have had the stuffing knocked out of them over the past year and a half. It is in tandem with our market scheme, which is already in place, and it is designed to increase footfall and to get cash flowing around our town centres. And there's 2 months free parking in Christmas and the New Year, so it's to really drive footfall at the key economic periods and in the post-Christmas slump. It also moves to restore civic pride and clean up our borough, quite literally, with the deep cleans and the fly tipping cameras. And in addition to that, we've also managed to find some capital receipt to pay for Christmas lights. So hopefully the borough will look a bit smarter come December. It emphasises public safety and law and order by helping our friends in the police with the Nomad cameras, and it's found money to appeal our traveller public space protection order, and it has put back in, which was taken out by the previous administration, the target hardening budget, which was inexplicably removed after the previous administration had sat for about 2 years on the £100,000, which is necessary to protect our open spaces from lawlessness and criminality. We all remember how it was 3 years ago. And of course it introduces, which is long overdue, the English language tests and the safeguarding tests for taxi drivers. Anyone who sat on the licensing committee will know how important those are. It contributes to our regeneration with the movements from the Towns Fund we've been awarded, the grant for the cycle hub. It does not include the shopfront scheme. That's coming later on the track, but that is very much coming down the line once we've got confirmation on the next funding stream for ARG. And of course, it also shifts into our policies of spending the public money wisely and sound government. So we are, regrettably, as I say, I'm a traditionalist. It would be nice if we could keep this sort of thing, but the mayor's lease car is going. The gravy train, I'm afraid, is over on that one. We are getting rid of the physical in touch. There's no need for it anymore, and we are rationalising and restructuring our management in the council. And I will just put on record, because I'm already speaking longer than I intended to, that this is very much happening in the context of the black hole that we were left by the previous administration. The previous administration did not read the FAQ document, so the funding stream that we were assured was there for the policies that this borough needs to revive its economy was not available. So, and I will make that clear, which is that if that funding had been available and if the previous administration in December and February had backed the proposals, the costed proposals that we brought then, the postponements in the capital repair budget would not be necessary. So that's the main things I'll say on the item, Leader. There's a couple of verbal amendments I need to make to the report. On 4.4 on pages 294 and 295, it needs to be altered to say that the 21 days notice is going to start on would it start on the 1st of July or the 30th of June, because we're bringing it to the, never mind, 1st of July, because we're bringing it to council in a week's time. On page 292, a 2.6 should be added to refer these papers to the Extraordinary Council on Wednesday next. And I would also like it to be formally written into the record as a 2.7 on that page that the Cabinet expresses its thanks to the finance team and all the officers who've worked on this emergency budget. And I would just like to very publicly express my appreciation to Director Hines and Craig Pugh, the Head of Financial Services, and the entire finance team, because they've turned this around in 6 weeks in the middle of year-end and audit procedures, when the council and finance are short-staffed, as we've discussed, and the council has been in crisis management mode for nigh on 16 months now. So it's been a remarkable job to do that and to get moving with our economic programme. So that's all I'll say, and I shall make a fuller statement in 1 week's time. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Just to pick up on something, do we need to also amend on 295, page 295, that subject to the consultation, it says that it will come into effect from Friday the 1st of August now that we're going to the 30th of June rather than Friday the 9th of August?
That's correct, Leader. We'll bring it forward about a week to the 1st of August. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so that everything is out there and in the public domain. I'm more than happy to second the emergency budget resolutions printed here. I believe we do have a public speaker, Mrs. Condacor.
Thank you. Now, I understand that you're desperate to put the sort of car parking things that you had in your manifesto and things, but I'm really concerned with some of the cuts that are happening in order to pay for that. Now, I did that last time when there was a raising of the car park fees. I was actually against that and things, but I think it's going too much the other way, because things like, what about those who don't drive? It's actually really helping those who, a lot of them who can actually pay. It is a balance, I understand that and things. Those who don't drive, so the poorer people actually aren't getting, you know, as much from this. You're subsidising those who work in town, who might otherwise walk or cycle in, what have you, and things if there's free parking, and take up the sort of best parking for the shoppers, and subsidising those, you know, from outside the borough who also might work and things. So I understand it is a balance and things, but I do feel that it's actually gone too far in one direction and things, because the bits that are being cut in order to fund this, sort of the major repair and things, you know, the town hall door entry thing, this was considered a high priority project due to fire safety issues, and you're just, you know, not doing it and things. Car park works, reduced large scale essential repairs. Now, to me, essential is must be done. And, you know, we see on the roads and things, if you keep just doing patches and things, in the long run, it actually costs more money. Civic Hall, not replacing obsolete air conditioning panel. High risk of failure, particularly whilst the site is being used as a vaccination centre. These are things that to me sound like they really absolutely must be done. And yeah, I'm concerned that they're actually being not being done simply to pay for more free car parking. So I am a bit concerned about that. Also, on the first page, it said about, on 4.1, reduce public conveniences. Now, I'm not sure quite how that works, because that seemed to be a vacant post. So I don't know sort of how that, but, you know, public toilets are absolutely essential, and we've been reduced so much already and things, so that does concern me as well. Reducing the opening hours of the Civic Hall. You know, it is difficult balancing the books. You know, I understand that, but some of the bits I am really concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Condacor. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacor. There was a point of clarification, was there? Sorry. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Condacor, you've raised a point about the Civic Hall, and I did authorise that reduction in operating hours within the budget. Could you tell me what benefit do you see the Civic Hall being open if there's no shows, the bistro is not open, and it's just open, just so the lights are on, it looks like something's happening? What benefit do you think that brings to Bedworth and the borough more widely?
Well, I need to know the details and things, but just generally reducing the if it needs to be really clear to the public when it is actually open, because it becomes a vicious circle. If people turn up and it's not open when they expect it to be open, the next time they won't even bother going there. You know, so it's being knowing absolutely what there is. Obviously, if there's not a show and things, but it's getting more shows on. You have sometimes it's spending money to save money. If you need to market the shows and what have you, so you get the numbers in, and then more people will know about it, go to the bistro and things. So I mean, obviously I don't know all the details that you know, but just from what's written here on the paperwork and things, it just does concern me that it's going to be a gradual decline of what should be one of the top facilities in the borough.
Councillor Evans.
Okay. So I do understand the points that you're raising about. I suppose what you're trying to say is the civic hall needs to be more profitable. And I have a report coming to me soon on how to do that. Following the recent audit into the civic hall, which was not great, there were some serious problems arising from that report. We've made a number of changes, which I think will go some way to making the civic hall more profitable. But again, I don't see the benefit of simply keeping a facility of that size open when nothing's happening. You know, when you go to bed at night, you don't keep the lights on downstairs, do you?
Reduce, like the reducing of the museum and things to meet your pledges in your manifestos. But what concerns me the most is the removing of the property purchases budget and reducing the major repairs budget. So I would like to know more information about them before next week, if possible, please. And the other bit is, obviously, after changing policies on fire risks for our tenants, to find out now that you've holding something back for the town hall, the door entry programme, not to proceed, which is linked to the fire alarm system. After we've just had a recent fire, I think that if you'd done a recent fire risk assessment, you would probably find it, with the recent fire, it would be fairly high. The removal of the 640 grand provision for the public sector decarbonisation. The way I understood this, it wasn't just down to the fact that we couldn't match fund it, but it was also the fact that we just, again, didn't have officer time. So if we could have some more information on that, because that was never fully explained. And that is something that we should be taking seriously, because the way I understood it, that it could have been spent on something like the town hall, having the windows replaced or something like that. That's all I have to say, Chair. I'll say the rest next week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watkins. Sorry, Councillor Clark, you were taking your mask off. I thought you were wanting to speak. As a seconder, I am more than happy to come in on a number of these items. The public conveniences reduction by 1 FTE, while the previous administration reduced the number of public conveniences full stop. So we actually have that a number of workers for too many workers for not enough public conveniences anymore. There is scope in there to reduce the public conveniences operators. Reducing the opening hours of the Civic Hall and the museum. It is quite clear there. It says that it will be done in accordance with the seasonality and when it makes more sense to do so. As Councillor Evans highlighted earlier, you would not keep your lights on downstairs if you were asleep upstairs. And it makes no sense for us as a council to be doing that. With regards to the property purchases, even though we are removing that budget, we are also finding with the increase in property prices, it is difficult to find a suitable property which would provide the necessary yield on that. With regards to the green, the decarbonisation, what I would say to Councillor Watkins is it was their bid under the previous administration, and if we didn't get the bid, then it would be down to the previous administration's issues, not this current administration on that front. And if the scheme isn't viable now that we can't get the funding from government, then this administration will not pursue an unviable project. We've already seen what happens when you do not budget according to your means. We saw that with Gresham Road, going over budget, that wasn't properly prepared. We saw that with issues with the council house changes, and that wasn't properly prepared. This administration is not prepared to sign a blank cheque to anyone. on that front. With regard to all the savings which are having to be made, I would rather not to be having to make these savings at all. But the stark reality is we are only making these savings because the previous administration, Labour, including Councillor Watkins, who stuck his hand up in the no column at both the Christmas Council and the Budget Council, when we proposed these alternative parking arrangements and market arrangements that could actually help people in their time of economic need, could have been funded by the ARG, and that guidance was subsequently unable to be followed. If he had done, and his colleagues at the time had done what we had said, that would have been funded and we would not be in the position we are in now of having to make these changes. And this administration is determined that we made promises at the election and we will see those promises through. We made a promise in good faith to the residents and to the businesses and to the market traders that this is what we would seek to do, and that is what we are delivering. And with regards to the car parking, I see no reason why we should be forcing people into the town centres after 3 o'clock. People should have the choice throughout the day of when they come, and 3 hours for £1 to me seems like a sensible suggestion to entice people back into the town centres and actually help with that economic recovery that we so desperately need. Let us not forget that in the good times, the market traders stood by, and the businesses stood by this borough and invested in Nuneaton and Bedworth and committed to us, quite often at their own personal cost and risk with their businesses. Now that they are in their own desperate times, where they have seen so much uncertainty over the past 16 months, it is time that this authority repaid that debt of gratitude that we owe them and actually support them to the hilt. And indeed, when I've been out speaking to market traders with Councillor Clark and with Councillor Golby, every single trader to a man and woman said that what we are proposing will help them. Indeed, one market trader said to me that without doing the free trading, the free market rates that we introduced at the last cabinet, and if we did not continue with the car parking changes, she would have given up. That would have been one less trader in our borough, one less business for someone to support, and one less business that people could actually come and purchase their goods from. And that is not an administration that this authority is in the habit of under this new Conservative administration. So, yes, there was a black hole in terms of being able to fund the changes which were necessary. If you had have actually gone with our suggestions in December and February, none of this would have happened. Instead, we had to pick up the pieces and move forward and do so at speed. And I do air and replicate the thanks that Councillor Croft has given to the finance team, because they have moved at significant pace to deliver our manifesto pledges on this. And I look forward to and the council next week, and I look forward to those who oppose this set of measures, how they intend to explain why they are not supporting businesses within this borough. Because we know that on our side of the chamber we will be doing that, and that is why people put us in control as opposed to the previous administration. So I hope that those who intend to vote against this next week have their excuses ready, because I suspect they will be extremely feeble ones indeed. So, any other member of the Cabinet? Councillor Golby, then Councillor Croft.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to take exception to the fact that the comment made before that poor people don't drive. Don't really think that's an accurate comment. You've already picked up on the toilet attendants, which I was going to pick up on. And also, we stood on a manifesto of these changes that we're making now, and we had a resounding nod from the electorate that actually supported what our aims and achievements were to be. It shouldn't come as any surprise that we are now implementing those things, and that it is unfortunate that we're having to do what we're having to do because of the issue with the ARG, but we did not get told that information until we took office. So we were basing our manifesto pledges genuinely on information that we weren't fully availed of. So that is one of the reasons why we have had to do this and chop and change a few things. But my area of interest in this is the target hardening measures, which is mentioned on 5.2. So there was a few years ago now £100,000 put into a budget for target hardening measures to try and prevent a repeat of the summer of discontent that we had with the cat and mouse games with travellers. That money was never spent. The work was never done, despite the asking, because I asked a few times for information about it. It was never forthcoming. I can only guess at why that was. But the money was actually taken out of the budget. Now, it's not as if the money was taken out of the budget for anything else. It was just taken out and basically put in a corner and left. So nothing was done. You can't claim that it was needed for something else, because it wasn't. Because we've identified where it was. It was sat in an unallocated pot, and we reallocated it. So I've already started having conversations about the target hardening, because I think even though we had the injunction in place, and that's going through some court challenges at the moment, and I will actually mention that we are collateral damage in this. We are not. We haven't been challenged directly. We have been sucked into somebody else's legal issue, and we are legal collateral damage, but we are fighting as best as we can, and that will all come to council soon enough. But that notwithstanding the injunction, we should have carried on with the target hardening, because injunctions do not, by their nature, last forever. So we should have bought ourselves a bit of time and made hay while the sun shone in that respect, and it never happened. So now, as with many other things, this administration is picking up the pieces and trying to get on with stuff that should have been done years ago. So that is why the target hardening measures have been brought back into the budget, and I'm happy to start working on that as quickly as the budget gets signed off. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of points out of the comments that have been raised. On the broader car parking transport issue, I understand the point about people who don't drive not being picked, and one of them is me, by the way. But at the end of the day, we do have to recognise that the default mode of transport in this part of the world is the car. And it's not really, I genuinely don't believe it's really our job to be sort of socially engineering the world. We find the world as it is, this is the way, and this is the lever of fiscal policy available to us that can have the most impact on the town centres. So on the point about people who work in the town centres, sort of giving them a break, I mean, I'm very happy to do that. It's more money in their pockets. It's a fiscal stimulus. More money in the pockets of the people, more money gets spent. It's not a bad thing. I mean, we do want shoppers and customers in, but it's who was it who said a money in the pocket of the man or the woman in the street is better than the money in the pocket of Sir Humphrey Appleby. So like I say, it's a fiscal stimulus. It's to get money out the door. On the point about the capital repairs programme, nobody likes to do that. I'd rather not have made some of these repairs, some of these postponements. But that was the situation we inherited. And the economic crisis is now. So we've got to get the money out of the door now. We are not cancelling the repairs forever. It's not a case of we're not doing it. These are postponements. But in terms of local government financing, you have to balance the budget in advance. That was pretty much all I was going to say. But and I'll leave it there, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Croft. Officers have anything they wish to come back on? Don't see anything. Can we then take a vote on this item to go through to the Extraordinary Council next week then, please? All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That then leads us on to recommendations from overview and scrutiny panels. There are none reported for this one, although I'm aware that one was made before. That will come through at the next Cabinet, hopefully. That leads us on to agenda item 12, which is any other items. which will be the leisure update paper, which I have agreed to bring forward as our Luff bid was submitted last Friday with regards to Bedworth Leisure Centre. And I think, seeing as this administration has had no formal open discussion about it or consideration, and it was something we inherited, I think it was important to bring it to this Cabinet, seeing as we've just submitted that. So, Councillor Evans, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, thank you very much for giving me leave to present this update to Cabinet. I felt that it was right for Cabinet to have an update on the implementation of the strategy. If I can just give some context to this, the leisure strategy was implemented quite some time before the local elections, and I think it's fair to say that, broadly speaking, at the time it received cross-party support. At the time, members also received a number of briefing sessions, and there was also a very good virtual briefing session where we had live polling taking place with the external consultants, and I know that polling has very much influenced, the direction they want to go in with the project. Again, just to highlight what the strategy includes, the strategy includes a new physical activity hub for the Pingles, a new physical activity hub for Bedworth, and a new community hub at Top Farm in Nuneaton. And the report goes into some length about what will be contained in the new proposed activity hubs for Pingles and Bedworth. In relation to Top Farm, we are very much in the early stages of that, and a lot is depending on how Warwickshire County Council want to come forward with any potential planning applications at that site. But the idea is to have a joint community hub where you have a sort of a joint leisure and health facility. And I think, given some of the current problems we have with obesity, etc., in the borough, I think it's great actually to connect those two things into one location. The former Cabinet budgeted to get the Pingles to Reba Stage 1 and to deliver the Bedworth Physical Activity Hub up to Reba Stage 3. If I just explain what I mean by Reba stages, when you deliver these multi-million-pound projects, you have to follow a plan of work as set out by the Royal Institute for British Architects, and there's 7 Reba stages, which starts from here's the idea all the way to putting a spade in the ground and then opening the facility for community use. We have completed Reba Stage 1 for Pingles, and we are virtually near completion to Reba Stage 3 for the Bedworth Physical Activity Hub. In order to, well, first of all, it needs to be accepted that when this strategy was introduced, because of the current problems and the lifespan with Bedworth Leisure Centre, it was agreed that that element of the strategy would be treated as a priority. So in order to take Bedworth to the next step, we need to go through Reba Stage 4, which I want to come on to now, if I may. Before we took control of this council, we were told by the previous controlling group and by members of the Cabinet that both the Pingles and the Bedworth Physical Activity Hub were going ahead. They were fully costed, fully budgeted for, and it was definitely going to happen. I make reference to 2 sources. First of all, a press release that was issued by the Labour group, the then Labour group on the 29th of March 2021, and I quote, "Labour will build new leisure centres in both Bedworth and Nuneaton." I also make reference to the Labour group's manifesto going into the most recent local election that said, "Your Labour Council will continue to build a new leisure centre in both Bedworth and Nuneaton, including new swimming pools, gyms and further facilities for local people." I struggle to understand how one can promise something if something is not budgeted for. And in the case of Pingles, the then Labour Council only budgeted for Reba Stage 1, which is your preparation and briefing stage, and they only budgeted for Reba Stages 1, 2 and 3 for Bedworth. So we're now at the stage where we have to go into Reba Stage 4. And I have to say, I am somewhat baffled, but also interested in knowing how the controlling group expected to fund Reba Stage 4, given the promises that you committed in your manifesto and in that press release, because I have to inform Cabinet that Reba Stage 4 will cost this authority £500,000. So you may, well, the former council went out there, said this is going ahead, and I will use the term, yes, there was a black hole of £500,000. However, we need to look on the bright side. We need to take the project forward. We were preparing our bid to the government's Levelling Up Fund, which I'm pleased to say was submitted on Friday morning. It's a fantastic bid, I'm pleased to say. Our officers have worked extremely hard. Some officers have been working into the early hours, into the morning, just to get this in. And as part of the Levelling Up Fund bid, we have included Reba Stage 4 within that bid. We will obviously hear from government at some point, I expect, in the autumn, as to what's going on. But just to give members a brief update, we submitted a bid for around £15 million to build the new leisure centre alongside a new green corridor to connect the proposed new leisure facility to Bedworth Town Centre. So whilst it's very much leisure based, I do think it might have benefits in trying to kickstart any potential regeneration in Bedworth Town Centre, which is extremely important to residents in the town. So, like I say, I think our bid is very strong. We have overcome potentially that challenge in funding Reba Stage 4. However, I felt it was important to bring to Cabinet's attention that the projects are very much in the early stages, and if I was in the position that Councillor Lloyd was in as my predecessor, I would not have gone out there issuing these press releases myself. I feel that the previous council has misled the public, and I hope that my statement to Cabinet sets the record straight as to where we are currently at with this project. So, Chair, I wish to move recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 as printed on pages 2 and 3 of this report. And I would also like to move an additional recommendation that Cabinet passes on our thanks to Director Hollis, the Head of Sports Development, the Sports Development team, and our external consultants who have been working on the bid for what is a great bid, and we need to thank them for their hard work and commitment over recent weeks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Does that receive a seconder? Oh, Councillor Golby, you got your hand up first. Thank you very much. Mrs. Condacor, did you wish to speak on? You indicated you wanted to speak on this, didn't you, as an extra item?
yeah, I hadn't read it all through, but yes. I just wanted to really clarify the cycling hub things, because on the budget thing, it implied that, you know, the council was putting money aside to fund that, match fund and things. And yet we were told at the Cycle Forum on Monday that we don't know as yet whether we've got the money from British Cycling things. So I just wanted clarification on that. And in terms of timescales, I mean, I did understand that Bedworth would go ahead first and things, but I was never under the impression that Pingles was going to happen anytime soon, and Top Farm even longer timescale. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Condacor. You have a point of clarification?
Just to answer, I can come back at the end.
If it's not clarification, then bring that up in the debate afterwards. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacor, and then Councillor Watkins.
Thank you very much. In the 1990s, at the end of the 1990s, me and Michelle swam quite a bit at the Bedworth Leisure Centre. I don't think there's a single councillor who believes that it didn't need replacing in the 2020s. One thing that has come up in this report at 4.1.5 is the cost inflations for the Pingles project, particularly due to inflation, Brexit and the pandemic. And obviously lots of costs have gone up, and yet that doesn't seem to have been considered for the Bedworth project as a risk, and also for the Abbey Street Hotel, actually, while we're talking about it. So I think the Cabinet member might be useful if we could explain where the contingency is for rising construction costs, because it has been while house prices have been going up and everything else, all the steel, the bricks, all the things we need to build a leisure centre have been getting considerably more expensive in the last year, and it's unlikely to go back to the costs they were. On Top Farm, it is November 2017 the County Council put the planning application in, and it may not be determined until September 2021. So the County Council aren't really going very fast on Top Farm for understandable reasons, with all the other developments going ahead. And it is important that the Top Farm development, if it happens very slowly, doesn't derail our need for GP surgeries. As part of that activity hub, if it ever happens, there's plans for a GP surgery, but that has effectively stopped us having a GP surgery in Wellington, because the CCG is saying, oh, we'll wait for Top Farm, and Top Farm is going incredibly slowly. So I do hope we can sort that issue out. I really do wish the Bedworth facility well. I say, 20 years ago it was looking an oldish leisure centre. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, another black hole that you're saying that the finance team have signed off. Well, it wasn't a black hole at all. Of course, we had something in place, and I can't speak for the previous councillor, but I can speak for myself. And yes, we did have things in place to raise the funds. I won't be telling you, obviously, but yes, we had things in place. There was no black hole. So there wasn't a black hole on the first one, there's not a second black hole, and there's not going to be a third black hole. Otherwise, the finance team would not sign it off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Evans.
If I can just come back on a few things, Chair. I respect you don't want to say how you would have funded that. That would have been a decision should the Labour group have won the election. However, when you go out there and say, and I quote, Labour will build new leisure centres in both Bedworth and Nuneaton, but you only deliver a project to Reba Stage 1 and then for Bedworth and Reba Stage 3, you cannot sit there and tell me that it's budgeted for. It's not. Can't find any financial information, and I'm happy for the Cabinet Member for Finance to come in here if I'm wrong, but Reba Stage 4, the Bedworth, has not been budgeted for. That's correct, yeah? So the former council did not do that. So yes, there was a black hole of £500,000 because you said that you would be delivering the project, but you can't deliver a project with a black hole of £500,000 because you didn't budget for it. Mrs. Kandaka raised a point about cycling hub. I want to be careful what I say here because there's some commercial sensitivity problems I wouldn't want to put out in the public domain. However, perhaps if myself and Director Hollis could provide you a briefing session with the cycling forum. I just don't want to put some of the commercially sensitive information out in the public domain, which I hope you respect. But it's very much going forward, that I can assure you. Councillor Kandaka asked about the risks, financial risks involved with the Bedworth Leisure Centre, with reference to Brexit, and I would say more supply issues than Brexit myself, but those are factored in, and I'm happy to provide Councillor Kandaka with a full breakdown of the finances behind the project, but that is built in to the project. And Top Farm, it's hard for me to comment until we really know what the plans are from the county council's end. But it's something that you know, I think that the north of Nuneaton does need to have a new leisure facility in place, given the number of developments which have gone up there in the last few years. And I suppose when people in Weddington, St Nicholas Park are told you've got to have these new houses, yet they don't have the necessary infrastructure in place, GP surgeries, etc., they sort of expect to have those things. So Top Farm is something that I completely support, councillor, and the council does as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Leader. I'll just make a couple of remarks. I'd like to echo Councillor Evans' appreciation to Director Hollis and the team. We dropped that on the Levelling Up Fund at the last minute to include the £500,000. The phone call that the finance portfolio holder does not want to get from one of his colleagues is we need to find £500,000 to include in an absolutely crucial project, and they really turned it around in a very short time, and they did an awful lot of work on that and produced an excellent piece of work. So I'd just like to publicly express my appreciation for that. The other comment I'd like to make is that Councillor Evans is absolutely correct, because if it had been budgeted for, it would have been in the budget. And it's very interesting that we were expected to find that a few months in year. Now, I'm very glad that Councillor Watkins says that he knew how he was going to pay for it. Obviously, it's only right and proper that we don't know what advice another political administration was getting, but it does rather raise the question that what did the previous administration have in mind until after the election? But I shall just leave that there, Leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Councillor Dolby.
Thank you, Chair. It sort of what I was going to pick up with you. If the previous administration had ideas about how they were going to fund it, they didn't seem to tell anybody else, including finance officers, because yeah, that phone call were £500,000 short. But that also leads us on to the fact that this potentially, the Bedworth Leisure Centre, hangs on whether we get the funding through from government, and that's not a guaranteed either. So we need to be prepared for all eventualities, and part of this administration is being open and transparent with residents, and that is something that potentially down the line we are again going to have to deal with. But yeah, if, like I said, if there were plans and ideas, it's a mystery to pretty much everybody. So it'd be, like I said, again, it's only right and proper. You have your political direction, we have ours. We get information by officers. You had information by officers, and never the twain shall meet. And that is the right and proper thing to do. However, when it comes to finances, again, as Councillor Cross pointed out, it wasn't budgeted. It wasn't in the budget. So it wasn't there. don't know where it was going to come from. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Mr Hollis, do you wish to say anything? Okay, thank you. Like Councillor Croft not wanting as finance portfolio holder to receive a phone call of that magnitude, I can assure you that as leader of a council, that is equally a phone call that you do not wish to be receiving, particularly at a late hour, as it happened to be on this occasion. The opposition can make as many protestations as it wants, but officers said in reports, and officers will point us to these reports, that there is no funding to REBA Stage 4. They went out there and said at this election that it was fully funded. I am slightly tongue-in-cheek reminded of the election in 2018 when the opposition said there are no plans to introduce green bin charges and then do them straight afterwards. I wonder, similarly, on a similar vein to Councillor Croft, whether that may have been the funding stream that they were looking for. The issue is that, and I think this shows a difference of approach between this administration and the last, is that whenever we made a financial commitment or a promise, we always looked to cost it. Whenever we put something in a manifesto, it was based on a shadow budget which was signed off by the 151 officer. Everything in that manifesto we put forward this time and last time, we had only put forward once we could be sure we could fund it, based on the best information we had at the time. To hear that there may have been some plans to fund REBA Stage 4 is not reassuring at all. In fact, I think it is careless, and I think it is a damning indictment of the way that the previous administration actually ran things. Because you cannot go out there and promise to residents you will have a brand spanking new Bedworth Leisure Centre, but we haven't actually funded Stage 4, but we might tell you if we actually win control of the council this time around, please keep us. That's essentially what we have heard tonight, that we will only tell you how we're going to fund it if we'd have won. They didn't actually put the interests of residents first to actually ensure that there will be a Bedworth Leisure Centre in 2, 3, 4 years' time, because the life cycle that is left of Bedworth Leisure Centre, it's effectively on life support at the moment. We will be lucky if we get 2 to 3 years out of it. We already had a few years ago the crash of the ceiling, which impacted for a number of weeks. And I think that is highlighting a very serious issue that we have to contend with as an authority. And to find £500,000 to actually take it to the next stage is a daunting task, but we have actually looked to try and do that within the Luff bid. And I do echo the comments of Councillors Evans and Croft that the team pulled out all the stops for this levelling up fund. But we are kind of in a position where we may have had to put all our eggs in one basket if this authority cannot find any more savings. It is that serious and significant. And I think the residents of Bedworth deserved far better than what they have actually had from the previous administration, and I think that is probably why they only have one seat left in Bedworth with the way that they were treated. So if the opposition party is serious about wanting to see Bedworth Leisure Centre delivered, then our door is always open. We are willing to listen. We want to actually do something for the borough. But whenever we put something forward in opposition, we always backed it with the funds. And that was the difference between us and them. And I think that is a far more responsible political party that actually has the interests of residents first, compared to the shambles that was the previous administration. So thank you very much for the report, and I am more than happy to proceed with the recommendations as printed and added to by Councillor Evans. So can we have a show of hands of all those in favour, please? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Well, that concludes the business of tonight's Cabinet. I thank everyone for their attendance, and I wish you a safe journey home and see a number of you next Wednesday. Thank you.